The children seem drawn to you.
That's a strange thing for a young man to say.
I can't find my parents.
Me neither. They're dead.
Will you help me find them?
No. Can't you see I'm busy? What was that?
That's my mother.
Hello, all. Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy. And if you guys hear some snoring in the background of this episode, I have 3 dogs surrounding me right now, snore very loudly, and that's better than barking.
We'll take it.
Unlike everybody else in this episode, we're going to let sleeping dogs lie.
So much to say about that.
I have everything to say about that. And I've been holding it in for 3 days now. That's what I've been wanting to dig into every time we've been on the phone and been like, nope, we can't say it. We can't say it.
Yeah, we've talked quite a bit this week so far. This is Wednesday. We're recording on Wednesday. And we have started to talk about the episode and we're like, no, stop. And then we'll start again. And it's like, okay, I'm hanging up the phone because we are not going to discuss this yet.
Yeah, we've been podcasting together this month for officially a year. And I think the last 2 episodes are the first time that we have both really struggled to not be like, girl, and have to like hold our thoughts before we get behind a mic. So I'm ready.
Well, today we are covering episode 7 of HBO Max's show Welcome to Derry, titled The Black Spot. Please note this is a spoiler-filled podcast, so if you haven't seen this crazy episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, just come back and check us out after you finished watching.
All right. Episode 7 was written by Jason Fuchs and his 3 friends, Brad, Caleb, Kane. Ken, guys, it's one man, Brad, Caleb, Kane, who may be 3 kids in a trench coat, and he tricked the machetes. I don't know, machetes, you might want to look into that. Anyway, and it was directed by, speaking of which, Andrew Machete himself.
You could so feel that in this episode.
Yeah, they were definitely bringing the best parts of the It franchise to the direction and the pacing of this episode.
For sure. So, speaking of this episode, would you like to tell us what happens?
I would love it. In 1908, Bob Gray, the original Pennywise and Ingrid's father, is lured into the woods by the entity disguised as a child and never returns. In the present, the Bowers mob arrives at the Black Spot demanding Hank, and when the patrons refuse, they set the building on fire. Halloran saves Hank, Ronnie, and Will, while Rich dies, saving Marge by putting her in an overturned cooler. Ingrid, in her periwinkle costume, arrives on the scene in time to witness Pennywise killing her husband Stan, then feeding on him as he'd already done several other victims. Realizing he is not her father, Ingrid balks, causing it to show her the deadlights, which leaves her catatonic. Marge and Ronnie inform a paranoid Lily, who is increasingly attached to the pillar, about Rich's death. Halloran, sensing Pennywise entered hibernation, leads the military to one of the pillars, which they remove and burn, while Shaw tells Leroy he intends to free Pennywise and use its powers to control Americans. Meanwhile, Rose hides Hank, who has been reported as dead by the authorities, but Pennywise reawakens, appears at Will's house, and blasts him too with the deadlights. That's where we end. They started the match, no pun intended, last episode, and I think we're just going to be pedal to the metal throughout this last episode coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's dive in because like I said, we both said,
there's a lot.
I think we have there's a lot that happened and a lot to talk about. So my favorite part of the episode was this moment where we start in 1908 and we get to officially meet Bob Gray as himself, not Pennywise as Bob Gray. And we get to see him doing his act. And I know you had mentioned Bob Gray was in the book supposed to be like a bad guy, but I kind of like that they made him. It seems like he was a good guy in this iteration. doing his show, and we see in his show that his clown wife dies, and we end up getting that signature dance with the red balloons, and then the kids storm the stage and bully him, and we see across the way a weird child just blankly watching over everything. And then we get into the tent, which is where I really liked how they fleshed out Bob Gray's character. So Ingrid's getting herself dressed up in her costume, and she's talking to Bob or to her dad about the show. And it just seemed like he really loves her, and like he has been good to her, and she really loved him, and that he was a good dad to her. I got no negative. I think he's tired and weary, and we learn in their conversation that something happens at the carnival because he doesn't work for the carnival anymore. But I don't know. It just he seems like a good guy.
I think that is definitely what they wanted you to think in that scene. And it could be true, because one of the things that I have consistently run into with this series, I don't even know if this is the right time to say it, because I think we're going to revisit this several times throughout, is that I think that they've written a little bit more than they're going to be able to tie up with this whole season. But as we've discussed in the past, there may be more fleshed out in coming seasons. There are things that I'm just mystified that they introduced into the plot that have not really fully been resolved, or at least not been resolved intelligently. And first of all, I want to say that performance that he did, it's beautiful and it was very touching and it was probably good clowning, but who's doing a sad, like my wife's, you think these kids are going to laugh about your dead clown wife and her little outfit dancing and all of that? Like, what the fuck is that?
I wrote in my notes, I was like, the kids don't seem to be into this.
Because it was depressing as shit.
But then when the gopher showed back up with the flower, and he takes the flower, and then all the kids were like applauding, but then they bum rushed the stage. So yeah. I feel like the Bob Gray portion of this series is closed. I think they gave us, I don't know why they would even need to revisit that in the finale.
Here's, in my opinion, why. Okay, so what we got from this scene is that Bob Gray is a sad guy that has lost his wife, clearly, because the pantomime that he does is mostly about his dead wife, which gives us a lot of exposition. He's got this dead wife and he's raising his daughter on his own, and she clearly is very close to her father. He's just kind of a sad guy. I love the voice. I said, this voice is suddenly Bill Hader.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is funny because like later in the episode when they've got a radio announcer that's talking, that also sounds like a Bill Hader character. So now I'm kind of like wondering, was this a Bill Hader episode homage? I don't know. On the surface, it's just like he seems, like you said, like a kind of loving father. He watches her do her little dance. And like you said, they've clearly, apparently at some point, he was with a big circus. And he seems to have gotten fired from that circus for whatever reason. Could be his drinking, because we see later that he has got a flask on him and he's drinking pretty heavily. But he tells her one day they're going to do a brand new act and that nobody's ever seen before, and they're going to get back in the circus.
But it's not just that he's going to get back in the circus, but that he's going to do something that they've never seen before. And that's like the first father-daughter act. Giving her the name Periwinkle, and she's like taken aback by it. And he's like, you can change it if you want. And it wasn't, nothing that he emoted was, I don't know. I don't see.
No, I don't think you're wrong. So here's my two trains of thought about it. Either it is exactly as it was written on page and what you saw, which is just kind of a sad guy who seemed to love his daughter and was doing the best he could. And one day her dad sees this weird kid who you can hear screaming in the woods and gets let off. And that's it. And we don't revisit it. If that is the case, I'm going to be furious with this scene, because if that is the case, that in no way, shape, or form explains why Ingrid is willing to straight up murder bunches of people in order to occasionally see a monster that eats things for a couple of seconds every 27 years. Because no amount of logic makes sense. I love my children dearly, more than anything in the world. But if they disappear one day and the version of them that shows back up demands child sacrifice, I'm going to go, that doesn't seem like Ava. The only way it makes sense is if we get
More of her
more of the
story.
story. And I could see a world where that's the only brief scene we get. But there are some questions there, like, why are they so unnaturally close?
See, I didn't see any of that as unnaturally close. They were
Well,
just a
I mean,
father
they're
and
close enough that
daughter.
she was willing to be totally okay with him showing up as a child-eating clown every 27 years.
But that's
No, there's no normal grief that makes
no,
that.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I don't see the way, when they gave her the handkerchief and the guy explains it away like it was probably wolves that got him. All we see is her cry. We don't
Right.
know what has happened between that moment and current time.
Right.
So,
We don't, but I don't. The whole premise would have to be that before her real dad died, she had such a connection to him that she truly believed that some part of him lived in a clown that came and ate children that kind of looked like him, but mostly ate children. So the only way, in my mind, that makes sense that she would be willing to sacrifice people to him is if they already had a kind of fucked up relationship. If they don't, and he's just a normal dad, then they're going to have to really sell me on her life being super fucked up between 1908 and 1937 because she was already sacrificing, or 35. So something really fucked up is going to have happened between then and
well,
1935.
that's what I think. That's why I think they're headed.
Maybe they are going to need to because as it reads, it's just that simple. He was a pretty okay dad who lost his wife early and disappeared one day. It makes zero sense to me that she was willing to sacrifice children and other people just to have a half a second little glimpse of him every once in a while. That just it doesn't make sense. So I am on the fence with them even giving us that scene.
I liked it. I loved all of that. I loved getting to see non CGI Pennywise. And
I
I
did like
stand
that.
by what I said earlier in the series is that non CGI Pennywise is far scarier than the CGI up one. And
I
it was
agree.
great to see Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. Because when
Yeah.
he CGI'd up, he still does a great job. I'm not slighting the actor in any way,
Yeah.
but there's
Well,
just something so
I agree. We're not there yet. I skipped ahead a little bit because I was just going on my rant about Ingrid, but I didn't dislike the scene. I just, because of how everything ended up, I'm going to need more exposition about that relationship. Because if it's just genuinely that he was a pretty decent dude and he disappeared one day, then her future actions and past actions make no sense to me.
I don't know. It makes sense to me because she's dealing with a very traumatic experience. She's dealing with it during very formative ages, and God knows what her life was like without him later
Yeah.
on. And so I'm choosing to just take this for what it was and know that if they get these two other seasons, we're going to get more backstory
Well,
into
that's my
why
hope.
she ended up the way. That's how I walked away from it. So I had no ill feelings whatsoever. This was, like I said, my favorite part of the episode.
Maybe after they get their next two seasons and we put it all together as a tapestry, some of these big questions I've still got outstanding will be answered.
Yeah.
One thing though, I love that they included the kid be the one that lured Bob Gray into the woods. I find that very creepy. Creepy kids are the worst.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite horror tropes.
Children of the Corn remains one of the greatest, creepiest movies of all time because of those children.
And as we discovered this week, that ties directly back to Bill Skarsgård's character in the short-lived TV show Castle Rock. That was his character in Castle Rock, that weird, mysterious kid who is some iteration of it.
All right, well, let's move on to what I'm calling the burnt spot. But
Oh, bum.
y'all, wow,
There's
so much
Richie's
happened
ghost
here.
drums giving us a
Oh,
little snare.
yeah. So we basically pick up there where we left off. Bowers and his mob of angry white men approach the building. And they come busting in after one of the guys gets in to tell them, hey, we've got trouble coming. And they, of course, come in guns drawn. Did you notice they were all wearing like Halloween masks, vampire,
Monsters,
Frankenstein, monsters? Yeah, I was like, that's very fitting. Because usually when they do scenes like that, it's like dead presidents or something like that. So I thought that was a nice nod just to the horror genre overall.
Well, and that, they are monsters.
Yes, it worked. I loved the way they got the shots of the kids, the crowd, and intermingled all that with the dialogue of what's being said. And I just felt like they did a great job of showing what that real fear looked like. Like I felt their tension and their their concern at this angry mob of white men coming in guns blazing and wanting to take them out.
It was terrifying. That was just as scary and uncomfortable as we thought it was going to be. Maybe more horrifying than I think they did this part very well. I liked how it was one shot, basically.
Yeah.
What I kept thinking about watching that were the earlier scenes where they kept trying to gaslight Charlotte Hanlon and telling her, this isn't the South, ma'am, and trying to imply that racism didn't exist in Maine, that the North was so much more advanced and refined. And here they are just straight up murdering innocent people. Everybody getting shot. Justice is the fire, but the people getting shot around the windows.
Before we get to that, so, Dick comes out to try to diffuse the situation. And I did laugh when Hank comes out and Dick's face is like, man, this motherfucker.
Yeah.
But then it was cool that this Black community are like, yeah, look, we got guns too. And it just so happens ours are government issued. And when he said, I suggest y'all leave, ain't nobody getting strung up today, all I could think of was Ice Cube's line, I didn't have to use my AK today.
Yeah, except everybody did.
Yeah.
Today was not a good day.
So this is enough to make Bowers and the gang leave, but I wrote here in my notes, I don't feel any relief because they obviously have a backup plan. And this is where what you were talking about, one of the most disgusting scenes was that they hear this change rattling, realize the doors have been chained shut. We get the lights out. You get that quick glimpse of Rich peeking out the window and realizing that they're about to launch the Molotov cocktails at him. And he barely gets out a warning before one comes flying through the window and lights a man on fire. And then they just keep coming. But the fact that they sat there and waited for these people to find ways to escape. They sat there and waited to shoot them. They're being shot through the windows, the doors, whatever. And they're showing it. They're showing you the reality of what it's like to be standing in a hopeless situation and your friend next to you gets his head blown off. It made me feel like it was like war.
Yeah. It was, I tried to find in the records what he was talking about, but Stephen King at one point mentioned that plot point in It, The Black Spot, was actually based on some kind of real tragedy from Maine history. I'm still looking because I want to know exactly what it was, but I don't want to hijack this and go too far into history. But it just so happens this week that I was doing some research on my own family tree, and I found an article that fleshed out what had been a family legend that I have heard. And of course, like every family legend, there's a seed of truth, but the reality seems to have been a little bit more complex. Long story short, there was a famous racist, a famous segregationist who was from New Jersey, of all places. And I don't remember his name. And I thought about Googling it before this, but you know what? I don't want to know his name anymore. And I think that what's fitting is that as hard as he tried to make a name for himself, at the time, he was very, very well known. And I was surprised I'd never heard of him. He was from New Jersey and was coming down here to the South because we were integrating at the time. And this was like 58. So this would have been like 4 years before the show. He was trying to cause violence and chaos. He was trying to plan riots and bombings in situations where they would have an excuse to murder innocent Black people. My grandfather, vowed racist, in many ways, just not a good man. He apparently reading through the lines of what I know of family history and the article that I found where this guy was going to call my grandfather to testify as a character witness for him on a case in Nashville. My grandfather apparently got invited to some of the meetings for this, and he thought that these were going to be garden variety racists who were just running around yelling about black people and shaking their fists at the sky. But what he discovered was that this man was dangerous and that he was actively planning to try to blow up churches and schools and just basically cause as much chaos as he possibly could. So allegedly, and it does seem to have a kernel of truth in it from what I found, he then went to the FBI and turned informant against this man. But it just was a stark reminder to me that this shit happened. So, I don't know. I hope that people who see this, who might be inclined to think that this is just poetic license or that it was just fiction, should know that this is very much based in reality. And it was really tough. I mean, there was melodramatic scenes, and I hate to say it because I know that there's a long history of filmmakers and TV exploiting black pain and black violence to just sell tickets. It was still television, but I appreciated that they put in how incredibly horrific and violent this is. I love that we had those scenes of the couple, Noreen and that guy flirting out front beforehand, and we got to see how awesome this place was before we saw what these men did to it.
Yeah.
This was my favorite part of the episode, which is horrible because it also was gut-wrenching. I was sobbing my eyes out the entire time.
Well, I think they did a great job of showing just utter chaos. You've got people scrambling, trying to help each other, the kids trying to get out, avoiding getting shot, avoiding the flames. And that you could see slowly as some people, Noreen being one of them, realize they are in an absolute hopeless situation.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do.
All I can think is how hard it must have been to film that, like how stressful that must have been, especially for those kids. Exciting, I'm sure, because you're near open flame. There's fires going on. It was just chaos. That must have been insanely difficult to film.
Yeah. Well, we get lucky with Hank being led to the rot that he discovered in an earlier episode when they first got to the black spot. And was that Sesqui, the original war chief who...
I think so, yes.
It? Okay, that's who I thought it was. And I was like, good callback there. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And then I thought there were some good shots in here. Some of it was a little cheesy. But again, we talked about how the humor flows in weird places in the Stephen King genre. And I think this is one of those places. That shot of Pennywise coming through the fire and tells Noreen to take his hand. And then the next thing you see is, I think it was Ronnie that sees Pennywise mowing down on her.
Yeah, man, I put on there, Pennywise is literally crip walks over to Noreen while she's sitting there freaking the fuck out.
Yeah. He's like, I got this, boo.
Yeah, he's like, hey, girl, what's up?
I did think it was funny when he said, what's the matter? Do I have face on my face?
Yeah, I was like, horror, good with Pennywise.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, really?
I do think that is one of the points where the humor actually worked.
It did.
Zombie Uncle Sam's a little over the top. That was kind of funny.
I rolled my eyes at first, and then on second watch, I was like, okay, I'm going to give that its flowers.
Yeah.
So they're still trying to get everybody out inside, and we flash to Bowers, and he says it's time to go, and Andy Dufresne wants to make sure that Grogan is dead, but Clint says that nobody's getting out of there alive, and famous last words, but it did look like nobody was going to get out of there.
Yeah, it really was insane that they did. Dick Halloran, and I want to say a couple things about that. Number one, hello, Dickie. Yeah. I thought that was funny too. I enjoyed that. Number two, loved how true to the character it was that Dick was about to bounce and
he was going
peace out and leave everybody. And it was also true to his character that he then went and went back and was even brave enough to realize he needed to ask that war chief how to find the kids. But third, I think it'd take me like 3 days tops if I was Dick to get used to talking to dead people.
Well, you are of a different mind. Like you would welcome waking up one night and 47 dead people are in your room, like
it freaked me out for a few
asking
days.
questions.
It would freak me out for a few days, but here's how I think about it. So one of my biggest fears is straight up, like, I don't want to die. I never want to die. I love being me. I am awesome and cool, and I want to keep on doing this for the rest of eternity. So the idea that there is nothing after death is terrifying to me. If you knew, if you could see like dead people all the time, and I've told you before, like I do think there have been a couple of times that I've seen spirits in my life. I don't know what it means, but I think I've seen them, but not like that. If I could see that all the time, that just means you know that when you die, you're going to keep on balling. And so they're just people. I feel like that'd only be scary for a few minutes.
Yeah, I hope that in the event that I do end up seeing dead people, that it's like the TV show Ghosts.
Where they're all cute and dressed in, like, maybe one of them silly and doesn't wear pants. And
yeah, did you just see that?
I did see that. Girl, I told you.
We were talking and something just flew on my
computer. I told you,
Oh.
Becky, since we started doing the show, I have never noticed it before.
I got dead people in me.
Mm-hmm. They're letting you know, look, we're sprinkling fairy dust on Becky, Mandy.
That's
oh my
weird.
God. Oh God. It definitely looks like there's somebody behind you. There's not.
Stop it.
Move over. I need to see. Okay, it's your chair, but the way you're sitting, it looks like there is like a dude's head and a shoulder behind you.
Yeah, I see that now, and thanks. So yeah, moving on. I'll be over as soon as we're done recording this podcast for a night of comfort spooning.
Well, so, I don't know how comforting it would be if the ghosts show up. I'm clearly cool with just having more people to talk to.
Well, I want to bring them to your house. Be like, I'd like to meet you to meet Mandy, and she's going to take it from here.
Yeah.
So Dick is trying to get the kids out. He's successful with Hank, Will, and Ronnie, but as Marge and Rich are trying to make their way to the exit, they obviously get trapped by burning debris. And this tore me up. I had to pause. I had to blow my nose. I had to wipe my eyes, start again. First note I wrote is Rich got Titanic. It reminded me of the whole,
yes,
could both of us fit?
There was definitely room in both.
Yeah.
And Rich had plenty of time while he was doing that beautiful, sweet soliloquy that also had me sobbing. But I also was thinking, you got plenty of time to be like, shouldn't you be looking for a way out or something?
There's probably another cooler there somewhere. But I wrote off the silliness because of the seriousness of
it was very
the
sweet.
moment. So I loved Matilda. I tip my hat to you. A lot of people deserve Emmy nominations for their work in this show, but when I think of who deserves one most, it is this young lady. The look of anguish on her face when she realizes there's not enough room, when Richie is laying on top and he's trying to calm Marge down, and he's like, do you remember what you said about knights who sleep with something by the bed? Well, we don't just pee in pots. We also protect fair maidens. Yeah. And then he goes on recounting the moment first saw Marge. She caught him staring and said, take a picture. It'll last longer. And he was like, I didn't know what that meant, but I remember thinking later, what I should have said is, I wish I could.
I know.
That's your shoe poem. You didn't get to see it in the shoe.
I am disappointed I didn't get the shoe poem because I had this whole vision that, again, machetes, you need to call me. I have ideas. Okay, from the moment that he was having that talk with Will in the soda shop where he says, I once wrote a poem in the shoe, I am picturing Rich laid out in the black spot. All you can see, cameras askew, front, ground level, out of focus. You could see Rich's head and his arm, and then like becoming more and more crisply in focus right by the camera, turn on its side, his empty shoe with the most beautiful poem you've ever read in your fucking life. Your eyes are piss and tears.
I still think you have a chance to get that because he's got to go to the morgue. They're going to need to do something with his possessions. I don't feel like the shoe poem is out of the picture just yet.
That shot would have been iconic.
It would have.
And that is my audition, Machetes. And I feel like I've just given you gold.
I think you did. So then we cut to Stan. This was the most satisfying and
Yeah, it was great.
partially dumb moment
But it was great.
of the episode.
I enjoyed it.
So here's what I wrote in my notes, and then you can tell me your thoughts on it. So we cut to Stan's car not starting.
Awkward.
And as he's looking under the hood, we see Periwinkle peeking through the woods. Here's where I was a little annoyed. He is like, what are you doing? It all seemed kind of forced. Like, I feel like if that were Eric, well, I shouldn't use us as examples because there is a solid chance you and I might come out of the woods dressed as clowns. But in a regular relationship, when I don't think you know that your wife was a clown at some point, but she comes out in full garb in the woods when like building full of Black people is burning to the ground, and that
and
you're
now
like,
your wife's a clown.
what are you doing? I'm gonna need you're gonna be black and blue if you don't go home and wash that stuff off. Not, is there more to this? Why a clown? Why tonight? I felt like that was a very blah, kind of forced, lackluster, I guess, reaction. But what made up for it is that as he's yelling at her that he's gonna beat her when he gets home, she gets that glazed look in her eyes that we all know what that means, and just that simple hello papa. And I wrote in here, we proceeded to get one of the grossest yet most satisfying deaths of the season, the chopping the head in half, the teeth still attached to one side and his tongue is still moving. OMG, so gross.
It was disgusting.
I loved it, but it was Stan, and I'm like, fuck you, Stan.
One of the things I felt was very funny was her saying, this is just who I am, Stanley. Yeah. All I could think is, it's not a phase, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm a clown for life, okay? This is real me.
Accept me for who I am. But that wasn't even like an argument. He was just like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's just like, what the fuck ever. I just killed all these people. My car's not starting. Get your ass home. No, you know what? He should have run to ride from her. If he'd been more focused on, we'll talk about this clown shit later. We need to get the fuck out of here.
Right now, could you give me a jump?
Right.
Because we're about to be in some shit and we need to go.
Right. But I loved it. I wrote when Pennywise picked up that half of his head and started munching down, I was like, man, Pennywise has got some strong teeth. Because that is going to take a really good bite measure. Like
you've seen his teeth.
Yeah. And he can theoretically have as many teeth as he wants because he seems to just multiply them as he needs. So, yeah. He's never going to need dentures. He's got very, very strong. He must drink a lot of calcium.
Definitely. Well, it's probably getting all of these young kids.
Yeah, because they drink a lot of milk.
Yeah, so he's getting it through them. Because he didn't seem like a milk and cookies type of guy.
Well, with you and I both having the dental history that we have, we envy those teeth.
Yeah, for sure.
Good for you, Pennywise. They're an investment.
I get nervous with a corn cob anymore.
Yeah, and he's just
sound good.
through a whole butcher.
So I loved the whole interaction with Ingrid and Pennywise when he's staring her down while he's eating her husband's head. She doesn't seem the slightest bit upset about it.
I wouldn't be either. That's the one thing I find rational about this character is that she didn't give a shit that he just ate her racist.
Right. And in her head, she's probably thinking my dad is doing this to protect me. Right. And of course, he's playing up the thing by, show me the bow. And I did laugh that when he gets up, he burps and just tosses Stan's head and you can hear the blood splattering everywhere. Oh, yeah, that was so gross. And this is where I got annoyed. So he gives her a hug. He's like, you did good. All right, now I'm going to go take a nap. What? So you're telling me this freak of nature, supernatural man, child, woman, eating man just saw all of this crazy shit happen, just ate half a guy's head. This woman is standing here crazy as fuck, like, you're my daddy. And he's like, I'm going to go take a nap. That's how it ends.
So our friend Sam sent us a bunch of screenshots of just different things she'd seen on social media about this episode. And one of them, I think, is from Twitter. And it's some guy named Drip Soprano. And he said, I finally watched episode 7, and you're telling me Pennywise literally just hugged Periwinkle and was ready to go to sleep? Like if she didn't stop him, he'd just let her live? Bro really just accepted he's got a child now.
Yeah.
And it was like he was just like, fine, I guess I'm your dad. And she was too stupid to leave it at that.
I know. And that's where a second point of absolute annoyance is that she's confused and begs him not to leave her, not to abandon her again. And then she gets like this evil glare and grin from him. And that is the one thing that tips you off,
Thank
that you
you.
realize this motherfucker is not your dad.
You are
Come
on
on.
my page now. This is why that original scene was not fully enough for me, because it doesn't explain why, after everything else we've seen this season, including her willingly holding a kid's hands while he eat her, and she's deliberately, because all of these people's blood is at least as much on Ingrid's hands as anybody else's, including Hank Grogan. And I don't want to really get into the topic of how fraught it is to introduce this very real historical precedent of a white woman getting a black man killed through her own actions in a situation like this. So she brings Grogan, all these kids, dozens of innocent people from the town, is totally fine with them being murdered. And him saying, all right, I'm going to go take a nap, is what finally makes her go, hey, you're not my dad. Like, I don't buy it.
I don't think it was I'm going to go take a nap. I think it was when she was pushing him, like, don't abandon me again. Don't leave me, that she saw like Pennywise. I guess the way I see it is that he's not been like full on Pennywise with her. He's playing her with, like, when she's in that locked room after Mabel gets murdered and he pops up as Bob Gray. He's purposely
But he did
baiting
the same
her.
thing here.
I
He was
know,
like-
but she bought it.
Right.
But it wasn't until she started pushing that the eyes start glowing, that evil grin that he's got, that something clicked with her to where she realizes that's not him. But I do
And
think
child eating wasn't enough for her to know that wasn't
exactly.
her
I
father.
kind of think that she might have been smarter to figure that out sooner. It was a waste of such brilliance from Madeline Stowe.
Agreed.
That
She did great.
had to deliver that as her discovery, but
Yes.
she killed all of that.
The only way that I am going to feel better about that storyline through this season is if in the following 2 seasons we get more story about Ingrid Kirsch's history.
I think we will.
Well, I hope that it explains some of this, that it fills in some of these, what I think are pretty big plot
Yeah.
holes.
This could be where a little more exposition would work. But if they are planning for 2 more seasons and going back to 1908, there's a lot of room to explore her. What's her name? Jeez, Ingrid. And get all of that.
Yeah. Well, that's my hope.
I thought it was phenomenal shooting and directing, the way he's antagonizing her and then slowly creeping towards her. And then he hits her with the deadlights and they shoot it from behind. So you see her being lifted up in the air. You've got the orangey hues from the deadlights and mixed with the fire, the orange and yellows and reds of the fire behind him. That was one of the greater shots of episode.
Yeah, I just want you to know 2 things before we move past that. Is I wrote down, I love the line, "It's me, Pennywise, your dancing daddy." He was a little Adam Sandler there, and I enjoyed it. I'm here for it. I liked it.
Yeah, he dropped some good one-liners this episode that didn't annoy me as much as some of the others in the Uncle
For
Sam
whatever
episode.
reason, They worked more this episode. But I also wrote, you get what you deserve, Ingrid, with your bitch ass. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that if I wasn't clear, that's my opinion of Ingrid. Love you, Madeline Stowe. You did a great job with this character.
I hope you are cast.
I don't know how they would have her in 35. Maybe if it's flash forwards. I don't know how, but they need to get her
De-aging,
back.
CGI, man.
You know what I'd like to see? Oh, I'd like to see like your theory of. Okay, remember the last episode, or I think it was the last season of Fargo, where they had Jessie, what's her name? That British actress as the wacky nurse, like the weird nurse from Wisconsin, who was like super cheerful and all about cleanliness, but meanwhile she was secretly a serial killer.
Yes.
That's what I want to see for Ingrid. I want to see that Ingrid lost her shit in 1908, and she herself was a serial killer in the times when Pennywise was sleeping. And that would explain why she's batshit crazy enough to have a plan as stupid as she did.
Yeah, that would work. All right, so next we get the aftermath. I thought this was another well shot and directed scene, and that's why I knew you could see the Andy Machete all through this episode. The way the voices are muffled.
Yeah.
When I watched the first time, I watched without captions. When I watched to take notes, I watched with captions because it just makes it easier to catch.
Yeah, smart.
To catch stuff. But the firemen going through the wreckage, they hear Marge. More great acting by Matilda looking absolutely bewildered. And then she goes back and we get that shot of Rich's lifeless body propped up against the cooler. And I know this is weird to say about dead people or especially a dead child, but this is television. I thought he looked really peaceful.
I know, which is a strange choice because he was in a fire. How did he not get burnt?
It did make sense that very few of them had burn scars or anything like that. But I just liked like when he put her in there and was so stoic, like he didn't cry, he didn't wail, and then that just peaceful shot of him. I don't know. It really touched me for some reason.
It was man, that whole storyline had me just crying like a baby. I'm not going to lie. But I think if they had made it more gory, if they'd given him a death, it almost felt like they were deliberately trying to give him a hero's death.
I think they did too.
Yeah, he not just in the fact that he sacrificed his life, but like in that almost a romantic hero's death, because he was a romantic hero. He was such a sweet little lover boy. But I think that if they'd made it gorier, some of the tragic romance of it would have been lost. And I think that's probably why they chose to get. And I think it was a choice that they didn't want him to get killed by Pennywise. That this little heroic guy, got to go out
protecting someone
protecting a girl. Yeah, protecting the girl he loved. Like that. Yeah, he had a great life. He had a short life, but he was such a heroic character. I think they wanted to give him a heroic death. And letting him have that scene with Marge where he basically looks like an angel.
Yeah.
And instead of it being gory and gross, I think that was a deliberate choice on their parts. And hey, if they got it out quick enough, he definitely could have died of smoke inhalation.
That's usually when you hear about people burning up in fires, that usually it's blessedly die of the smoke inhalation before the flames get them. So I don't mind them not making his death gruesome.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really sweet to show Ronnie come in from one side and Will come in on the other side. And then they just all have that moment together with Rich. I'm curious, though, what you thought about when everyone's outside looking like they've been through hell. And we get that one lady who takes her wig off and is just laughing. Is she just overwhelmed and crazy from the events, or is she like Pennywise affected, or was that just showing a breakdown?
Yeah, I just think that her mind was broken. I want to know how you felt about that scene. What did you think about them having her as a Black woman take her wig off in that moment?
I think for the 60s, it was a very, it was a very natural thing, because not to go off on a tangent about Black women hair, but it's still often nowadays you hear stories where it's unacceptable to have your hair natural. So it was very common, like Charlotte gets her press curl done, so her hair is straight. It didn't bother me at all. It was a very normal, natural thing that it still had women, and now it's with all ethnicities, white women, everybody's wearing wigs now. It is a big thing. Wig sales are a big
Yeah.
deal. But I thought it was very true to the time and true to, I thought, hammering home just another level of what it's like to be a Black person and not be able to fully be yourself, and then to witness this and you're just broken and nothing at that point matters. So who cares? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's definitely what I got from it. I just was curious if you had a different perspective, because I do know that wig culture and black hair in general is, we've had a lot of conversations about that, and I know that is a thing, and it's something that most white people don't really understand how complex that relationship is. So I thought that was an interesting choice that they included it, and I was just curious what you thought about it. But yeah, I felt pretty much the same way, that it just showed that all of her inhibitions were gone, because why? What did it even matter anymore?
What matters now? Look what just happened. And,
Yeah.
it was tough. So I have here, Leroy shows up with Charlotte, and Leroy,
I wrote on here, Leroy, shut the fuck up.
like, no, hey, how you doing, kid? Sorry, you just saw people get their heads blown off, eaten, and burned alive. You shouldn't have left the house.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so annoyed with him on that one.
Yeah. Oh, Leroy's world is about to come to a very bad place for the rest of his life.
It's not good. Will tells them that Dick saved him, and I don't know the guy's name, but I'm just calling him Colonel Douche. Calls for Hanlon to come over and talk with him. And in the meantime, we find out Hank is still in the woods, and we get to Dick and Charlie, or I'm sorry, what's his name?
Chris Chalk.
Chris Chalk. Geez, another Emmy man. That's another man who deserves an Emmy award. The way he was like rocking back and forth, just absolutely losing his shit. And Hanlon drops in and he's like, "Are you all right?" And Dick's like, No.
In fact, I am not. Yeah.
I wrote here, LOL, same, Dick, same.
Yeah.
I'm not okay. So help me understand something here. I know this is probably explained better in Dr. Sleep, but he says he had to talk to one of them. And then we get all of these ghosts or dead people,
recently
spirits
dead people,
around him.
And some not recently.
And he keeps talking about the noise. So when he interacts with them, the shine is stronger.
His box is open now. Here's how I understand it. His grandmother taught him to
compartmentalize
and focus his gift enough that he was no longer seeing the dead around him. What he couldn't do is pick and choose, apparently, when to see them. He just had it all shoved into that suitcase. So he was no longer able to see dead people, which apparently he did as a child. Now he is back to seeing dead people all the time, everywhere. And as I recall, Dr. Sleep and The Shining, what older Dick Halloran is able to do is control when he does and does not see them. And I guess this is the origin story of him choosing to interact sometimes with the dead. Right now, apparently, he is not capable of controlling that power. But I think that's where he's learning that. What he's never done before is interact with them. But to save the kids, for the first time, as far as we know, he chose to speak to one of them.
It's overwhelming, it seems like, because there's so many.
Right. And I think eventually he learns to control that to a better degree. Definitely he does by the time we get to The Shining and Dr. Sleep. But for the first time in that fire, he spoke with one of them and he's learning, I can get something out of this. I think that's kind of what Dick's journey is going to be.
That's cool. Well, Dick tells everyone that he can't feel it anymore because it's gone to sleep, but he believes that he can find the pillar if they follow Sesqui. Who knows where the pillars are? And this is where I'm like, Dick.
Why, Dick?
Why?
In what universe does this? Why now have you not figured out these assholes do not need to be messing with this thing anymore.
Right.
Is it because does he still believe they're going to use the pillars to kill this thing?
He has to, because after
I
seeing
cannot
what he
believe
just
he's still-
saw, I don't know if it's just that commitment. I'm in this. There's nothing I can do. Let me just go ahead and
I don't know.
I was very disappointed that he continued on, but I also understand that the big part of the end of this story is leading them to that. But we'll get there. So Leroy and Charlotte are in the car, and this is another Leroy's pissing me off moment.
I wrote, shut the fuck up about your GD mission, Leroy.
Leroy still talking about the damn mission. Whatever.
Charlotte should have given him that face like that meme of Viola Davis picking up her purse.
And walking out from How to Get Away with Murder. Yes. Yes. That should be Charlotte Hanlon right now.
Yes.
So we end that little section and we go into what I'm calling fake news. We see the town of Derry, the hustle and bustle going on. We get a glimpse of Lily hanging out, and we learn on the news that the fire was caused by an electrical issue that broke out at an illegal colored speakeasy on the outskirts of town. Many dead, including, this is where I got pissed, the Negroes responsible for the tragedy. And then they were like, Stanley, our beloved butcher Stanley is dead because he showed up to help. Oh my God, I was so fucking pissed because waited for Derry and people in general to spin the bullshit to where the marginalized race looks like the bad guys here. And
Right.
two, this shit's still happening today in 2025.
Yeah, but they're not racist. They're not Southern, so how could they be racist?
Oh, that, as Peter Griffin would say, that really ground my gears. Grind it.
I love that we got it all from that radio announcer who did, and again, sound just like a Bill Hader character. And my favorite line was, no one could, rest in peace, Stanley. No one could fillet a tenderloin quite like you.
Or your head. Oh,
Yeah. It was gross, but funny. I'm like, that was, if I could have picked a way for him to go out.
that was a pretty good one.
That's a pretty dang good one.
Of all the deaths that we've seen this season, that's the only one that's really been satisfying.
Yeah.
And I hope there's a couple more.
Oh, yeah. I hope
To
Shaw's
go.
is even better.
Yeah, Shaw and Bowers. So we go to Rose's place, and just a quick plug, we spent a little bit of time last night with the amazing Kimberly Guerrero.
Amazing.
And that woman is incredible. But Mandy and I joked when we got on to record, it's like, it's so fun to talk to these people and then see them on TV. And it's like, oh, hey, I just
That's my
talked to
friend.
them. Yeah. Like we know them. So it was cool.
Yeah. And she was a lovely, intelligent, fascinating, and we could have spent hours talking to that lady. She was just incredible. We were so grateful that she spent her time with us. And she didn't give us any Easter eggs, except a little one, which I don't think is much of an Easter egg because I think we saw this coming, but she promised us there's going to be a big fight coming.
Hope so.
Yeah.
So we get to Rose's house, and she's telling the people that the cycle is complete, that it sleeps. We learn that 23 people so far were dead from the Black Spot fire, and then 17 children were killed during the cycle. And I am so glad that we finally got a little more emotion from these people who are frustrated that this keeps happening and that there's nothing that they can do to stop it. And Rose tries to calm everyone by saying, we do as much as we can for as many as we can. And she spends it to focus on the lives that you saved of the work that they do to keep it in its cage. And then the one elder just sits up and says, well, see you shit asses in 27 years. But the people just don't look very soothed.
Yeah, I love the shit asses. That was one of the things that we talked about with Kimberly Guerrero, who was also on one of my favorite TV shows, Reservation Dogs. That was a major cut down in that series shit asses. So that was a little bit of an Easter egg to the Reservation Dog fans, but also just kind of an accurate slang term that would be used by somebody in that time and place. I loved that scene. My one thought about that entire storyline is I really hope we see more of this.
More.
If we get 2 more seasons, there were a lot of things that had to be encompassed in 8 episodes. I get it. I do wish that there had been more fleshing out of characters from the Shokapiwa tribe. I wish that we had seen more. Like, do we even know the names of anybody besides Taniel and Rose?
Not really, no, but I do believe that if they get at least another season, the way they're going back in time, and it's got to be more of a focal point as we go backwards, because they played a much larger role in the initial trapping of it, learning about it, understanding the cycles. There's so much more that we could see. So I hope that they're going to deliver then, if they're not fully going to give us everything that I think this storyline deserves now.
Yeah, I just would like to see more native characters who are actually fully fleshed out characters in their society and their friendships and their relationships, etc. Because more than anybody else, like you just pointed out, they're the ones that have been battling and controlling this thing for the last several hundred years, at least.
Yeah. So next up, all I wrote here is fucking Shaw. We get a beautiful aerial shot of Derry over the new dig site. And then again, I wrote fucking Shaw. And then Dick's still not doing great. And I don't think Sesqui is too happy with him.
Yeah, I don't know how she could be.
That's all I have to say about that little segment. Because I'm warning y'all, when we get to it, I got some things to say.
Oh, me too.
Moving on to Charlotte and Hank. Charlotte and Will are working on a plan to get Hank to someone who can help him. Rose doesn't answer, so Charlotte just plans to head over to the house. Will wants to go to see Lily, but Charlotte is adamant, and I just wrote here she should have let him go. And then I laughed at Hank's concern that people will recognize him because he doesn't look like Leroy, and Charlotte's response was, "In this town?"
Loved
and him
it.
saying, "Yeah, point taken."
Loved it.
It's a common thing for small towns to have that all Black people look alike mentality.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say that's necessarily relegated to small towns.
Well, it's just where I experienced it.
Yeah, it is the truth. There are a lot of people that are like, don't all Black people look alike? And Derry definitely seems like an all Black people look alike kind of town.
For sure. Well, there's only 5 of them there, so.
Right. Well, now.
Yeah. Oh, God. Ooh. All right, so we move on to Lily, who is hanging on to that dagger like it's her new boyfriend. And I noticed that her mom seems a lot nicer now that it's asleep.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. They deliver the news that Rich is dead, and then they all go to the standpipe and start packing up his things. And I thought it was very sweet, sad moment when Marge sees the plane and makes the joke how he could never make it to Main Street with one. And then true girl power, they just all embrace Marge in a big hug. And I thought that was just a very, very sweet scene.
It was very sweet. I want to talk about Lily and that shard of the pillar for a second.
Are you seeing it having an effect on her like we discussed last week?
Mm-hmm, for sure. I can see. I think I told you that was one of the things that I told you this week is that there were several times that I saw that you were correct about things and I was correct about things, and times where I thought you and I, our version maybe wasn't correct, but our version should have been correct.
Yeah.
In this, you were correct. There's definitely something having an effect on her, but I have a theory about it. And haven't seen anybody else say this. So one of the things that I've tried to delve a little bit into is learning as we go through this series, refreshing my memory about some of the greater Stephen King lore. And as irritated and frustrated as I am with the military portion of this, just because it's not my thing and I don't love it, I forgot somehow that Stephen King has actually used the military and military experimenting with supernatural and extraterrestrial forces has been a theme throughout several of his books, including the Tommyknockers. I feel like what is influencing Lily now is the Shard. So the Tommyknockers was about an alien spacecraft crashing in the woods in this rural section of Maine. This woman and her dog discover it on their walks, and exposure to the spacecraft itself somehow starts to poison the mind, and it leads to this because it's like a hive mind type of thing. It's all from the same kind of, multiverse of all of Stephen King's other creations. It ties in together in several different other books. A military organization called the Shop that is vaguely involved in all of that. They also show up in The Mist and another Stephen King book, Dreamcatchers, where it is these hush hush military organizations that are somehow making these alien landings worse. So that actually does that storyline is kind of pulled from Stephen King, but in the Tommyknockers, it's the ship itself, it's the alien technology and exposure to it that starts to take over these people's minds. And so the native people have had these things encased in turtle shells for all of this time.
Rose had it in a safe.
Exactly. She wasn't walking around clutching it for, weeks on end and holding it to herself. But I have a theory that piece of equipment itself is what is causing Lily to go crazy.
That's where I was leaning towards last week, is I think that dagger is having a negative effect on her.
I don't even know if it's negative. It may be.
Right now it looks negative. It
definitely looks
horrible.
Dangerous.
She looks depressed. She doesn't look good.
She looks like they do in the Tommyknockers. But then there's also a part of me that thinks like maybe it's the ghost of the native people that used the war chieftain, that maybe it's their influence and that they're going to use Lily as a weapon. She's becoming the weapon.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, but I could also see that it's just going to make her batshit crazy.
Which is what I'm thinking. But
yeah.
I like the making her a warrior type situation. I like that. All right, so we're moving on to the section which I have been dying to say out loud, and I'm calling Indiana Jones and the Pillar of Doom.
This is so stupid.
This is what I wrote in my notes. I'm sorry, but this whole thing reminded me of the Ark storyline in Indiana Jones. The music that plays, the discovery of the shell, the dramatic shot of it being opened, the looking up shot of everyone standing over the dig site, the way they load it into the crate, lock it, load it onto the truck, the ridiculous musics that playing. I hated that whole thing. I hated it.
I was
like,
a fan.
This is an episode of Indiana Jones, and it was stupid.
It's funny you said that. I didn't know why you were calling it that. I know you had hinted that you were leaning towards something to do with Indiana Jones, because I'm not an Indiana Jones fan, so I don't know any of those references. But I did see someone else felt like that the scene where Rich put Marge in the cooler had some callback to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as well. I don't know what that is, but I saw that ad the day after you had mentioned it. And I thought, well, obviously Becky's not the only one that sees that parallel. So
I wonder if they felt that when watching that whole scene play out.
I don't know, but I don't get it. None of this makes sense. What is his end? Like,
we know his end game.
But it doesn't make any damn sense.
It doesn't make it. Let's just go ahead and close out the Temple of Doom before we hit the last 3 points. So, real quick, Charlotte goes to bring Hank to Rose. Rose invites them in, and Nathaniel busts in because he sees that they took off with the pillar. So we're back on base, or as I called, back to the Temple of Doom. They open the pillar, and it becomes quickly obvious that they have no intentions of studying it. They're going to destroy it, which was like, why? And then this is where, again, it goes a little off the rails for me. Hanlon busts in with the gun, demands they shut it down. fucking Shaw pokes his head up and tells everyone to stand down and asks Hanlon to come see him. And then we learn that Shaw's big plan is to destroy the gate so it can seep out over America, because what's the one thing that keeps everybody in line? And that's fear. Logically, Hank's like, what about all the kids that have lost their lives? And it made me think of the gentleman who said, a few shootings are okay to justify
Yes.
the bigger picture. That's exactly what Shaw sounded like to me right there, which made me hate him even more than I already do.
Well, that is definitely the parallel that they were going to. It was a big, heavy, obvious, blatant metaphor for our current political climate. And to be fair, the political climate of the 60s. And I did think, in trying to temper my judgment of this whole thing, about very well-known times that the government has done terrible things to its own people in the name of progress or quote-unquote public safety. Safety for whom is another question. So I get where they were going, kind of. Logistically, though, how is having a completely amoral killer alien being who just indiscriminately murders going to help public safety or keep your country together?
It's not. It's a control factor. It's like
but there's no
Hanlon
control
said,
over that.
No, but he doesn't see that. Shaw is thinking with, I don't know what he's thinking with.
Yeah, we don't get enough of that. We don't understand what his logic is because it makes no sense.
Because as we know, his only memory of it is staring it down in the forest right before Rose saves him. So
Yeah.
does he grasp the severity? Is it because he hasn't actually seen it for himself, like full on a full cycle? I don't know. And it doesn't, the only thing I could say is that they're just using Shaw as a way to somehow open the gates for Pennywise to get free, but we know he doesn't leave Derry. So what?
Here's the only way it makes sense. That is if we revisit my theory that something more happened to Shaw as a young kid when he saw it. That perhaps he saw the deadlights or something like that. And maybe not this entire time, but at some point it was able to draw into Shaw's consciousness to bring him back to Derry to do this dumb fuck plan so that it could escape. That is the only way I can imagine that this is going to make any sense. From what we already have on paper and on screen, his logic does not hold. And he's even said we're not trying to control it. So if you're not even trying to use it as a directed weapon, you're just letting the tiger loose in the hen house. How is that going to save your country, buddy? It's just going to eat your country.
It's going to eat your country, and it's going to cause more chaos because that's what it wants, is fear. And yes, fear can be used to keep people in line, but fear, as we've learned under it, makes people do
insane things
that is not along the agenda of making America great again, as
right.
Shaw basically was saying. I don't like it. I don't like how they ended it.
Unless they have some much more exposition about whatever Shaw's mindset is in this next episode, the idea of just letting it go on the United States just doesn't work. It does not work.
All right, so next we go to Wakey Wakey. We go from the pillar being burned in the fire to a cool shot, a transition shot into the sewer entrance. I thought this was very well done. You get that overhead shot of Pennywise snoozing in his bed of blood and entrails and the super creepy music playing, and then his eyes pop open. And this is where they got me because I thought that was going to be the end of the episode.
Yeah. That was a good shot, too.
It was a really, really great shot.
I saw somewhere else on social media, somebody said, woke him up straight from his bath and everything.
Yeah, I like the memes going around where you see him with the bloodline from his mouth down, but his hair is perfectly coiffed. And I'm like, that's me at the swimming pool because I'm not trying to get my hair wet. So then we end with our young Will is heading into the kitchen. Did you notice what was on top of the refrigerator? A clown figurine.
No, I didn't.
Right there on the corner.
Dang it, I missed it.
I didn't see it the first time. And the second time I was like, oh, you're kidding me. It's like a red clown suit. Nice touch. Props and directors. Very nice touch.
Hate that I missed that. I try to look for those little things.
So when you go back and watch it, look, you'll see it right there. So a little foreshadowing. He gets a call from Ronnie, but as we soon learn, it's not Ronnie. Seems normal at first, but then she starts talking weird, and Will's like, what the hell? And then Pennywise's voice starts coming through the phone, and I loved sweet Will trying to be brave. Like, you are not going to scare me anymore. He's like, he's seen some shit. He's like, I'm done being scared by you. And then you turn around and, hey, there's a half soaked in blood, creepy clown staring at you. And then he gives Will the deadlights. And then they played the song they played us out with was Uh-Oh, Trouble's Back in Town.
Love that.
Done.
Love that. I wrote that here. Yeah, loved the music. I like the red outfit. I know it's supposed to be blood, but
it really works.
I think P should wear that more often. Again, one of the memes that our friend Sam sent us from someone named Stone Dreamy on, I think this is Instagram, said, as if the costume design isn't scary enough, keep in mind that this man is 6'4" on top of a fridge. And then someone named Mrs. Unlucky replied, I know this is supposed to be scary, but all I see is someone who kept their hair dry so they didn't mess up their curls.
There you go. That's me.
And someone named Creepy Holic said, fear me, but don't touch the hair.
Yeah.
I love that. This is the scary Pennywise. Like, this is the scariest, the last two episodes, but particularly this one. I finally, even more than the movies, I see the scary Bill Skarsgård version of Pennywise. I love that they're giving him more time to do it without the heavy CGI.
Yes.
That it's mostly, you really just get a sense of him as an actor in this character, and he's killing it.
Literally. Yeah, I agree with you. I think starting the episode with him as Bob Gray and then bookending the episode with him as Pennywise was just a nice done. And then I can't tell you anybody I did not see him coming after Will.
No, because we know Will has to live.
Right. So I don't know where they're going to go, but I like that they've opened a door to a whole nother storyline we got to get some explanation for. But I also thought, wow, nice catch, because where was this going to go? They could have ended it with Pennywise waking up, but no, they took it a step further, and I was here for that.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be doubly tragic if this is something that is going to break Will Hanlon for the rest of his life and lead to the kind of tragic circumstances that he dies young in a fire, and that apparently he has a drug problem.
It looks like they're headed that way.
Yeah, he might just be permanently fucked up forever, which is going to lead to a lot of regret for Leroy staying on the mission, even though it ends up costing him his son. Because obviously, if he doesn't escape Pennywise relatively unscathed, this is all a result of Shaw burning that pillar and making it so Pennywise got... And I'm going to say something here. If I got woken up from my nap and I had to go back out and do more work, I would be very angry.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yes.
Forget just
I was
kids.
napping.
I'm coming for all y'all.
Yes. I was asleep. Okay. You don't wake Mama up from her nap.
He was in his mud soak. He was getting his facial. He was like, he hands ready to massage him at
He probably had like a whole evening of like Housewives lined up that he was going to watch. And
he's about to get caught up on our podcast.
Right. And now y'all got him back out killing kids again. I don't blame him. At this point, I'm mostly on his side. Now that he's killed Rich, I'm mostly on his side. Whatever he's going to do after this, I'm like, y'all deserve it. Most of you, other than those poor kids.
All right. Well, that leads us to our final thoughts. Yay or nay? I am a yay on this one. Like we discussed, there a few things took me out of it, but what they did right, they did so right, which makes me okay to not be as annoyed with what they did wrong. They did really wrong. So I'm going to give this 4 half Stanley heads out of 5.
I am going to say that I will give it 4.5 zombie clown French presses out of 5 because I think that as far as the horror, the moving the plot along, the pacing, world bit, like the little bits that we get, like I said, where potentially you've got this whole thing where Lily's going to be influenced by what could be, a call back to the Tommy knockers, getting to see him finally take out that Stanley, the way that they filmed the death of everybody in the black spot, Rich's scene, great. All of that is amazing. My one quibble with this show is I feel like they put too many irons in the fire. But the irons that are smoking hot, to keep this analogy going, are phenomenal. Like the things that they are getting right, they are getting very, very right. And so we've still got an episode to go, and maybe I'm wrong about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. What they're getting right, they're getting so freaking right is what's keeping me like, you know what? I can live with some cheese fodder or whatever. It's okay because they're delivering in so many other ways.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we got 2 voicemails this week. I love voicemails. First up, we have our dear friend Sam, and I am chomping at the bit to hear what she has to say about this episode. So here we go.
Hi, Becky and Mandy. How we feeling? What an exceptional episode. I mean, Becky, you were right. The penultimate episode is usually some of the best in all these TV series, and it didn't disappoint, at least for me. The nitpicky thing I have is that I didn't really care for the opening scene where Bill Gray was talking to Ingrid. Not the dancing, I mean, that was fun.
That was my favorite part. They seem to be the only one who really loved that.
Because we see why Pennywise was drawn to Bill Gray's character, but more of just the Periwinkle Pennywise scene. I didn't feel we really necessarily needed that. I think for me anyway, the writing and directing and acting was so good in episodes prior to this one that I could have inferred this. So I didn't really need to see it. And I was kind of bored during that scene. I did like the other one though, like Bill Gray following Pennywise the orphan into the forest and everything. I thought that was pretty cool. This episode really stands out to me how the town of Derry was founded by white settlers through colonization, and everyone's been suffering in that town ever since. Like the indigenous tribe really broke my heart in that one scene, and I don't know if it was necessarily what was explicitly said, more of what was implied, at least for me. The indigenous tribe had never asked to be the world's guardians against Pennywise. It just happened to be that's where he landed, that's where the people found him, and they said, okay, like now it's our job to protect the world from this creature, and we're going to build a cage, and we're going to do all this, like the flashback showed. And they can't leave. Like they have to stay, and they have to protect the world from this monster.
That's the story I want to hear, Sam.
They're skilled enough, and they're not delusional with manifest destiny like the white colonizers are, so they know that they will be able to accurately protect everyone. And here comes the white settlers coming in, colonizing this town and being like, we don't care if there's a monster, we're going to stay here. And now the indigenous tribe, who has to stay there and protect the town and protect the world, has to just watch these children die every 27 years. It's like the worst trauma anniversary. And they are helpless. Like, their job is to stand guard. And that is a very important job, but I get a feeling we're going to see pretty soon. And like, what are they going to do? Like, Rose told Shaw about it. So, like, yeah, maybe you can tell the people of the town. But look what happened the one time she told Shaw he grew up to become a military person, and now they're fucking up everything.
Yeah.
Now they want to use this monster as a weapon, because of course white colonizers do. Like, the indigenous people wanted to coexist best they can. White colonizers manifest destiny, conquer and take because that's your moral right. And I like that the show is bringing in the ideas of manifest destiny, because that has been very much weaponized against Black and African American people, as well as the indigenous people of the lands. And we're seeing it. It's just a constant cycle of misery. No one benefits from manifest destiny and white colonization. No one, not even white people. And we're seeing that. The people in the town of Derry, like, the adults are so disconnected from their children. Their children are dying, and they're like, oh, well. Like, it's a constant Pennywise poop infection. And it's just every generation they're going to lose children. And it's like, yeah, no one's winning in this. And so we see Shaw be the epitome of that. And in the same episode where we see Rich just sacrifice himself and be this hero and the kids crying and mourning him, we see Shaw saying, well, collateral damage is acceptable. And it's just so heartbreaking, because that's exactly what manifest destiny and colonization says. They say that. And his like rationale, and I know there's going to be some people who are like, the military wouldn't act like that. Ugh. I gotta tell you guys, I've never served, but nothing he's been saying is really out of pocket from the stories I've heard. Like, that kind of works. I mean, we need the military, and we have true heroes in there. And what coexists in there is a hierarchy of power that permits abuses of power. And it is about power and control, because that's just how it's set up, at least in the American military. And we're seeing him take advantage of that. We've never seen anyone else talk to Shaw. Like, when Hanlon says, like, I'm going to go to the DOD, and then Shaw's like, don't let him leave the base. Yeah, I bet. Because I think, honestly, the Department of Defense would be on board for just about everything Shaw wants to do, except that Shaw is destroying their one and only failsafe to catch Pennywise. Like, they'd be like, yeah, that sounds good. We'll get, utilitarian control, because that's what we want, a hierarchy and that kind of stuff. But then we want to put the genie back in the bottle. So what are you doing? It's our only
That part.
And we don't want them killing our troops. So I do think the Pennywise poop has infected Shaw's brain like a prion disease. Pennywise prion poop disease. I do think he's going very overboard with that, and it's just kind of crazy. But we're seeing manifest destiny from the top down. And of course, we're seeing the people of color being like, you're crazy because logic. It's just so rough to watch. And okay, Pennywise in that cuddle puddle of organs and blood was just really gross. Just him sitting in there like an alligator, like ugh. And
some people like to soak. Okay, Sam.
He was in the kitchen. I did not expect it. So what? He can go to sleep for 27 years and he pops back up? Oh my goodness. So sorry, this is going really, really long, my little soliloquy, but this episode was just so good. I cannot wait to hear what you ladies have to say. And what would you do if you were faced with a crisis that Pennywise was getting free?
That he was getting free?
I mean, I'd run like hell.
Yeah, I'd be gone. I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't even have still been there. I would have moved the second I even heard a rumor about a crazy clown eating people. I wouldn't even have been there for all of that.
If a perfectly normal clown moved next door to Becky, she'd move.
I would be moving, yeah. Unless it was Cam as
Fizbo.
I
don't know that there is a perfectly normal clown. Sorry, clowns. But, a non-space, the million-year-old space alien clown that eats children.
Well, next up, we got a voicemail from our good friend Steve Brown. I hope this is alive, Steve. I don't know if it is, but I hope it is. For you listeners who are familiar with Steve, his live Steves are the best. So here are his thoughts on this episode.
Hello, what's on tonight? This is Steve. I'm getting caught up with It, Welcome to Derry.
Yay!
I'm watching In the Name of the Father. It's almost over towards the end. And I just was wondering, before I live Steve, or try to live Steve the next one, we'll see how that goes. When did serving alcohol to minors I know it's the 60s, but still, serving alcohol to minors doesn't seem very right.
It
I
was
do
so
not like where this
wrong.
is heading, especially with the title of the next episode and these guys pulling up to the black spot, which is the title of the next episode. And here we go into episode 7. Oh, and of course, instead of starting right back where we left off, we're flashing back to 1908. And I guess this is the original Pennywise? Hey, I can't do it. I'm not going to live Steve this because it'll be too weird and long. And so I'll come back when I'm finished the episode. Hey, just finished the episode and whoa, they have a few things to wrap up in the last episode, and of course I'm sure there's going to be more seasons of this because wow, the military melted down one of the pillars, they woke it back up and it's out, and it appears to have gotten will. I don't know where this is going to go. Wow, can't wait to hear you guys you all talk about this one. I'm sorry that I haven't been present for this one, but this one I can't live Steve these. It's been a rough series, but we're coming up to the end. One more episode, and then let's see what happens. All right, talk to you later.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Yay!
I could not imagine trying to live Steve one of these Derry episodes, but I love that you wrote in, and I'm so glad that you're catching up and enjoying the show. So please send us your feedback after the finale airs and let us know what you think.
Yeah, Steve, I've missed you. I haven't heard you in so long, and I used to love you. Were one of my favorite parts of when we were doing What We Do in the Shadows. So I was just thinking about you this week. So I'm really excited that you did that. I'm guessing Steve's got some coulrophobia too, some clown phobia. Is that? Or is he just not into horror in general? And
it's not. I don't think it's like his number one genre, but he does. I just think this show in general with gore and psychological crazy, and Steve was in service in the military, so
there's a lot of heavy things.
I'm sure it's a lot of heavy things for him. So but I'm glad you're diving in, Steve, and so glad that you took the time to send us a voicemail. Like Mandy said, we have greatly missed hearing from you. And thank you, Sam, as always, for your incredible feedback. And you can always leave us 20-minute voicemails. We love them.
Yeah, thank you both for your feedback. We're always going to love hearing from you guys.
And if anyone else would like to leave some feedback or just say hi, you can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to What's On Tonight and the number 2 at gmail.com.
You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comments section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can be found on Instagram as well at What's On Tonight Podcast and the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a comment, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice.
All right, well, let's go to Leroy's quarters and hate on Sean, how stupid he is, and share where else listeners can hear us, podcast recommendations, TV suggestions, or anything else that you'd like to share. Mandy?
Well, my episode of Adrenaline Cinema with our fearless leader, Mark, on Guillermo del Toro's recent iteration of Frankenstein on Netflix is up now. If anybody wants to check that out, I listened to it finally today, and I thought we did a great job.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, it was really fun. I had a really weirdly Frankenstein heavy fall and winter. Like, feel like I've become like people's guest expert on Frankenstein, and it's come up more often than I thought it was going to. So it's been kind of fun, and I enjoyed it. It was a really great conversation, and that's a pretty good iteration of Frankenstein if anybody's not caught it.
Oh, so good. I loved it.
I had some issues that I cover in the podcast, but there were things that I really, really liked about it, and it was beautiful. So yeah, if you're into that at all, go watch Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein on Netflix, and then catch mine and Mark's convo about it on Adrenaline Cinema.
Awesome. Well, I had the pleasure of guesting on the Cast of Us with Jason and the super, super sweet Lucy. It was so great to finally get to podcast with her. And we had a great conversation about the episode Coda from the Walking Dead rewatch. So, for you Walking Dead fans, that was Beth's final episode, and she was my favorite character. So, please check that episode out. And Kelsey and Jen with their They Did What podcast just released their latest episode where they cover HBO's documentary, The Alabama Solution, which through cell phone footage and a lot of secret stuff shines a light on the Alabama prison system. If you haven't watched that documentary, I highly recommend it. And then give them a listen.
Oh, I got to check that out.
It's really good.
That sounds
And
right up my alley.
you'll really like their podcast and how they discuss these.
I need to make a note as soon as we get off. That's the trouble with when I'm looking for a new podcast is I have all of these ones I hear about and I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. And then when I actually go to like listen to a new one, I can never remember.
Oh, well, I'll send you a link too.
Okay.
As far as TV recommendations go, I discovered a little gem on Peacock called Stumble. And it's a mockumentary that explores the highly competitive world of junior college cheerleading. It is so campy, cheesy, funny. This woman who was like the Navarro coach, if you've ever watched whatever that show is on Netflix about the real cheerleaders. She was like that lady, like coaching this super awesome team that keeps winning championships. But then she lost her job and had to go find another job with a smaller school. And she's trying to build up this cheerleading program. And it's cute. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, well, as we covered in our interview with Kimberly Guerrero, one of the many things that she and Becky share in common is that they are both former cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Go, Go. As always, a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform. Please visit the Pirate Core page. You can find it on our Facebook page, and there you can find our podcast, as well as other podcasts like Dinner for Her with our very own Mandy, a Journal and Cinema podcast, and Panels to Pixels podcast, as well as other projects that Mark is working on. And please note in show notes for every episode, we post the links to all of the podcasts that Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment have.
That wraps up our coverage of episode 7. We will be back next week to discuss the season finale titled Winter Fire. That is a dead callback to the poem that Ben wrote for Bev in the Losers Club.
Yes.
Your hair is like winter fire. My heart burns there too.
Yep.
Oh, man. Here we go. Home stretch, guys.
Here we go. Well, thank you everyone so much for listening. What we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. So please love each other, y'all. I'm Becky.
I'm Mandy, the dancing clown.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.